Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for turning up to this one. I've got a really interesting guest, not marketing, not sales, not any of that stuff. This is about my love of my life, technology. But I'm also here with somebody, very rare person that actually knows what I'm talking about, even when I'm going off on one. So with that, I'd just like to introduce Ian Cox. So hand you in there. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Gavin. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today.
I'm just going to give you a bit of a short background of where Ian comes from. So he started out in IBM. He's been to the dark side, into the government, British Energy, and is an associate of the Gardner Group, working in government, and is now very kindly agreed to have a bit of a chat about some of the things that he and I think may be a problem in technology. And with that, let's crack on. So I'm just going to start out with something that's maybe a bit sort of off the cuff, but you may have heard of Roman concrete. Now, everybody possibly has. And it lasts for about 2,000 years. And up until recently, that is 2023, would you believe it? They didn't know why it lasted that long. Now, why am I talking about that and technology? We're going to be talking about technical debt. And the Romans had a very interesting look from an engineering perspective. They wanted stuff to last, but technical debt, that can kill your business. With that, this is what it looks on the outside to most people when it comes to a technology or service or anything. Looks very pretty, looks very solid, looks as though it's going somewhere. With that, Ian, maybe you'd just like to give your 10 cents to that.
Thank you, Gavin. That's absolutely true. It always starts off looking very pretty on the outside. However, in my experience, technology rusts. It decays over time. And that happens very rapidly, much more so than you'd expect. Today, we have our base platforms iterating very quickly. At the front end, we have things like Node.js, which are releasing new versions frequently. The same is true for .NET, the same is true for Java. So what does this mean? It means that over a short number of years, a piece of code that you have built and left deployed and doing what you consider to be a good job is slowly rusting to a point whereby it is no longer fit for purpose. And when you want to make a change to parts of your infrastructure, your background, you suddenly look around and find, oh my gosh, I've got a real problem. I can't actually change things until I mend what's there already on the ground. Now, that mending what's on the ground can become extremely expensive. I was working with a very notable client in the financial payments sector only about 5 years ago. And we turned around and realized that they had some original Java 1 in their payment stack. Now, they sold for about 900 million.
So just for the normal people in here, just if you had an analogy what Java 1 is, how old would that be if it was a human being, for example? Maybe
we're going back
somebody
more
could
than
understand.
20 years. So we're going back a long time.
Okay, so there we go. More than a millennial. That's what a whole generation, basically.
We're talking about a whole generation. And we're talking about code which is still ostensibly working. But the way in which it interacts with all the other pieces of code mean that you can't just take it out and replace it, because other things don't work that way anymore. So you take that brick out and you look to replace it with another one, but it means you need to replace the 2 bricks next to it. Oh, and then you replace those, and you need to replace those surrounding that. And so it goes on. And you end up in this situation here whereby you end up replacing the whole edifice. And the cost gets out of control. That particular client that I mentioned, the cost of replacing that stack was going to be around 300 million. So it becomes a significant cost to a business.
300 million. Sorry, is that pounds? That's not
That's
dollars.
pounds. That's actually pounds.
Ah, ouch.
And this was British payments, actually underlying, underpinning the payment system. So it was a big deal. But you find that a lot on the smaller scale, for example. If you have a .NET application that's more than about 3 or 4 years old, you'll find that you cannot just recompile it to use the new version of .NET. It won't work. You can't do it. You have to re-engineer parts of the code. And the cost is not insignificant. Now, there are tools around to do that. AWS and Microsoft have tools to help you migrate, but it is not effort-free. So there is a very real point here whereby
300 million pounds worth of not effort free is what you're saying.
Exactly. So to avoid these situations, what you very much do need to do is make sure that all of your applications that are supporting your business are rebuilt and redeployed using the latest versions of code on a regular basis.
So could I just draw a quick analogy here for everybody that's not technical, just in case somebody's a normal business owner and they're looking at this. So we're looking at something where you've got, say you've built a house 20 years ago, and it's going to cost you, you've got to upgrade to a Chatsworth estate to be able to pay for the house that you bought 20 to 30 years ago. Is that what you're saying, sort of?
That's what I'm saying. If you're not careful, if you don't stay on top of it, that's the situation you're going to be in. And so it is a little bit of care, a little bit of governance, and a little bit of budget, making sure that you stay up to date with those things, and that as new versions of software are released, you have part of your team which is responsible for making sure you migrate to the newest versions. It
So
sounds like...
Just so people understand that, if you're talking about a massive expense in a sort of percentage, what would you be talking about when you say a little bit of budget? What's that for somebody? I'm a Yorkshireman. I like sort of normal stuff. So are we talking about it's this much or it's that much?
No, it should be. If you stay current, it is that much. Sorry, that much. It is a small amount, but it means that you do need to do it on a regular basis. Probably if you put 5% of the development cost into actually making sure that you're rolling things forward and continually upgrading, then that would be a very sensible place to be.
My maths is crap, but so if you're talking about 5% of your development costs, your dev budget, that's what you're talking about, isn't it? So yes. So if for a normal business owner, that's from their technical budget, they're doing programming, so proper stuff. That means not support, not anything like that. The people that are doing programming, it's 5% of that budget, isn't it? Just so that it's clear to people. Yeah. So it's actually a very small amount then, probably.
It's a very small amount, but certainly relatively. And it absolutely will save you down the road. It will enable you to, when the business wants to make strategic changes, they want to introduce new technology, they want to introduce new capabilities into the business, they will be able to do that without having to re-engineer half of their existing code base. Okay. And that's a prize worth having.
And maybe just one or two examples where you've seen something like this, where it's gone wrong, something concrete, obviously not any names, just a situation where you've seen a situation that's concrete so that you can explain it in human terms, so that somebody that's watching this that is a business owner that's saying, okay, they can see possibly that things are maybe a bit wobbly, but what's it going to look like if I actually get on top of this? And so they can understand this is where it could go if you don't get it fixed.
An example of this is a current client of mine. They have a business data analytics application running in the financial space. They built it about 5 years ago. It was built to run on .NET. We are now at .NET 9. That needs to, it calls some libraries, which were expensive paid for libraries, to do rendering into PDF. Now, the situation has got to the point whereby they need to change their cloud architecture generally. They need to stop deploying on Windows systems and have a proper web infrastructure. And before they can do that, they have got to re-engineer that entire application, including those libraries, and they are going to have to spend more than the original development cost to do that.
Okay. So basically, on top of the inflation, and just so everybody else is clear, if you're not technical and just a business owner, think of anything in computing in dog years at least. That means 1 year in reality is 7 years for IT, and probably even faster with the way things are going with AI at the moment. Ian, I just want to let you know, it looks as though you've got a dog tickling your ear.
I would just reposition. Oh, there it is. It's moving around.
Cool. Okay.
My Labrador, my constant companion.
So that's
yes.
one good example. Is there any others that you'd like to mention that come to mind? Or
Yes, another good example in the front end space. A client I was working for a couple of years ago who had a product around cryptocurrency. They had built their front end. In fact, they built their entire stack using Node.js, which is very popular JavaScript technology. But they were, again, 5 versions out of date when we came to redeploy the application. And what's the driving factor here? There are several driving factors. Let me answer that in 2 parts. Firstly, because there were 5 versions out of date, there was an appreciable amount of re-engineering to be done to allow their code to run on the new stack. Secondly, and probably more important, there are major security. One of the reasons for needing to upgrade is that over time, there's a database called CVE. It's a database of exposures in cyber security exposures, and particularly things like .NET and Node.js. Over time, people learn how to hack them. And one of the reasons they get upgraded is that they close those loopholes.
Yeah. And the bigger the company, the more likely it is that somebody's actually going to break in as well.
Exactly that. So you have increasingly vulnerable and a larger footprint attack surface for cyber criminals to attack them. So they need to upgrade. You don't upgrade, and you end up with a significant. This was as I say, cyber payments, cybersecurity and cyber payments. With Node.js, and 5 versions. There was a lot to do there, an awful lot of work, and a lot of cost. Again, it was probably a couple of £100,000 worth of engineering cost to actually bring that to fruition.
And draw an analogy of what you actually do. So if I've understood it correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when it comes down to it, like many of us would go to the doctor and get checked up.
Yep.
Well, we should be, and certainly if we're in our age group, definitely. Then it's going. You're looking at the whole situation, saying, "Okay, this is where we are from a health perspective, and we can make sure that is fixed, and this is how we're going to do it, and that you can estimate what that would cost, and then so right, okay, this is what we're going to save on the other hand, and this is how it's going to get improved."
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed.
So, would you like to add anything else before I move on?
Okay, so I think from just to as a passing thought, the reasons to avoid technical debt are enabling you to keep current on the technology, enabling you to be versatile and upgrade. Not doing so increases your cyber attack surface. It makes you more vulnerable to cyber attack than if you remain current. And I think those two things together, for me, are a significant driver to ensure that people do actually upgrade, stay current, save money, and stay safe.
So I'm going to ask that very, very podcasty question. Email address, LinkedIn, wherever.
So, Ian, IAIN, at clevercloud.co.uk. Sorry, clevercloud.ltd. Or on LinkedIn. I'm very much available on LinkedIn. Please connect, send me a message, let me know what you think. I'd be delighted to speak to you.
Okay. With that, we'll
and
wrap
thank
it
you,
up there, folks.
Thank you for your time.